This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
When people are just getting introduced to online marketing, guys like you and I who've been telling stories for a long time and writing emails, we see how kind of simple and formulaic and easy it is. But for somebody that's just walking into it, it's like, being handed a Kalashnikov rifle and being told to take it apart and put it back together again the first time you're ever handed it.
Hi, my name is Igor Kheifets, and this is The List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to another edition of the List Building Lifestyle with your host, Igor Kheifets. Craig Ballantyne is the editor of the Early to Rise newsletter. He's a best-selling author of The Perfect Day Formula. He's a strength and conditioning coach. He's the author of Turbulence Training, and he contributes regularly to the Men's Health magazine. In short, Craig is an incredibly productive individual who runs one of the largest newsletters in the world that helps you get healthy, wealthy, and wise. Craig, how are you doing today?
Really, really great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Craig, let's go ahead and just dive right in. I know you're a busy guy. So you create a lot of content, like a ton, and primarily through writing, although you do some video marketing as well. Now, it seems like you can easily produce 1,000 words on virtually any subject that's close to your heart. Now, I'm curious, were you always a natural writer? And if not, how did you develop such tremendous capacity for producing high-quality content?
I was kind of a writer, but to get really good content, it's practice, it's studying the masters, it's really being able to find your voice, which is something that shouldn't take people long. But, I've studied everybody from Matt Fury to Mark Ford to Dan Kennedy, just reading a lot and seeing how they do it, seeing how they build in personality with teaching and leaving people with a big idea to take away. And that's really it at the end of the day. People want to be a little bit entertained, a little bit informed, and that way they go away saying, hey, that was good. That was good. I learned something. I enjoyed that. And now I can go and apply that to my life and go and have success.
It's interesting. We call this concept on the show infotainment. It's a term I first heard from Ben Settle, a friend of mine and someone who I really admire when it comes to email marketing. And he says the exact same thing. You kind of have to give him broccoli dipped in chocolate. So it has to be nutritious like broccoli, but it has to taste like chocolate. In other words, entertainment, which carries this informative and educational value in it. Now, that is definitely something we spoke a lot about on the show. However, you mentioned something else, which we almost never touched on, which I want to kind of dive deeper into, and that is personality in your writing. Now, do you mind sharing exactly what it means? Because I don't think too many people understand that.
Right. So I talk about my dog a lot. And, a lot of people like dogs, and it's a little bit of insight into my life. Some other people talk about their hobbies. Dan Kennedy talks about his horse racing. Mark Ford talks about his jujitsu down in Florida. He talks a little bit about his spouse. And it's all that sort of stuff. One of my favorite writers is Bill Bonner, who writes, these investment newsletters, but he talks about history. He talks about Greek mythology. He talks about, all the places that he's traveling. And, people, again, just want to have that little bit of entertainment because they're generally reading these things stuck in line at the grocery store on their smartphone. They're reading it at work. They're, in the cubicle. They're reading it when they're bored. They're not reading it when, they're at the bar on Friday night. So because they're reading it when they're bored, you have to show up and inject some personality into it. I really love that analogy of broccoli dipped in chocolate. That was the first time I've heard that. And I think that is a wonderful way of saying it, because if you just sent them an email and it was just facts and figures, people would be a little bit bored by it and they wouldn't hang around. And I know I've stayed on people's email lists for months just because I wanted to see where they were traveling to, even though I didn't really read most of their content. And then so another guy who does an amazing job of this is my good friend Simon Black at sovereignman.com. He's like a real life James Bond without the shooting of the guns and stuff, but he travels the world as a young man, and there's really a lot of people who probably read him just to live vicariously through him. So at the end of the day, whatever you're writing, you need to be writing it so that your readers are living a little bit vicariously through your life. Whether, if you're writing fitness stuff, you need to be the, fitter than them, and, building more muscle than them, and talking about it and living large because of it. And if you are somebody who's selling real estate, you need to be out there making deals and talking about it, and, talking about the characters that you deal with. And so people can really enjoy it. It's like a reality show.
Interesting. I never heard anyone presented this way before, because a lot of the people in our community, they're being taught to talk about their kids, talk about their whatever they're going through life right now. But it never worked for me. Like the things that really worked when I spoke about them that had any relation to my life were big things, like getting married, or having a child, bringing a child into the world, or maybe a death in the family. That sort of stuff, because it's extraordinary, it's not something that happens every single day, it got attention from my list. But for the most part, I wasn't really able to take mundane things such as, taking my dog on a walk and put it into an infotaining, container or something like that. So do you mind giving us an example of how someone who lives a pretty boring life can do this?
Yeah, because I live a very boring life. I'm the world's most boring man. So I would write about how I went into on a dog walk with my dog, obviously, and I was talking about how I was listening to a Nito Cobain CD, and I was, making fun of myself because yes, I still had a CD player, and this is just like 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm walking through. Nice. You buy all these CDs from Dan Kennedy, and it's like, well, I got to get a CD player, obviously. So I bought one of these, portable CD players, and I was walking the dog through a field on my family's farm and listening to Nito Cobain, and that was the introduction into, Nito Cobain had a very interesting story to tell, and he, I recommend people listen to him, but also, then I retold the story that he told, and it's all about, telling the story and putting imagery into it, so that, and to do that as quickly as possible so that you get their imagination involved. And if they get their imagination involved, then now they've made a little bit of a commitment to it. And so they're going to go through and read the rest of it. And so that's generally something that is considered in the copy world. The longer that you can get them to commit to reading it, whether it's watching an infomercial or video sales letter, the more that chance they have of taking action, because they've already put a lot of energy into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And in our business, what we do, we use the concept of micro commitments, where we ask for, rather than one long commitment, we ask for a series of small commitments over a period of time. So that too, for us, works really well. And the more, as you say, they're invested, as in the more commitments they made up until this point, the less likely they are to back out of the sale. Which is, again, it's just a tremendous concept that completely transformed my business, because starting out, I thought that people were supposed to buy from me because I put a link in front of them, which, as it turned out, was never the case. So circling back to just taking any day-to-day situation and being able to spot that nugget around which you can write a piece of content. What else can you suggest to someone who's just getting into the habit of writing, say, their daily emails to promote, just hypothetically, a business opportunity? They're trying to make money by enrolling people into business opportunity, and they're using email marketing to do it. So what can you suggest to them, the first thing they must do in order to be successful at it?
They certainly need to have some experience with the stuff. They need to know other success stories that they can share, because people want to see proof, like, hey, I don't believe that anybody can do it. Okay, now you go and say, well, listen, I did it. Here are my results. And you're like, oh, okay, I believe that you can do it. Now, I still don't believe that I can do it. And then so you go and you share some other success stories. Say, here's John. He's 45 years old. He's an accountant. He had 2 kids. He just got divorced. And so he has, high monthly payments to his wife. And he was like, how can I make some extra money? And, John came to me, and we sat down at the pub, and where, I was drinking this, he was drinking that. And you would put the details of what the drinks are in there, because people love to hear about, what you're eating and drinking. And then so and, build a nice little, it was a nice old charming pub with a fireplace in the background. And, there was an Irish band playing in the corner, and we were yelling over our drinks, at the top of our lungs, going back and forth on, hey, how can we make John some money to pay off his wife who's, sucking his cash, and she's out there spending it and blah blah blah, to get people on John's side, and assuming your audience is like John, of course. And then and then I told John about this opportunity, and he was skeptical at first, but I said, hey John, I know a few other guys that have done it. It only takes like this many hours a week. And so John went home. I didn't hear from him for another 3 weeks. And then I ran into him, at the butcher shop, and he was in a real good mood. He was like, hey, I just bought these really expensive steaks. I'm going home to celebrate. And it's because of what you shared with me about this opportunity, because I went and, now I'm making more than enough money that I can pay off my ex-wife with the monthly payments, but I'm also able to eat like a king. So thank you so much. And, it actually took less time than you said it was going to, and I'm able to spend more time with the kids. And so that is the type of email that obviously you wouldn't make that up like I just made it up, but you would try and build in some type of success story so that you can teach people, hey, this is how it works, this is who it'll work for, these are the, I know you're skeptical about this and this, but here's a guy that overcame worse circumstances than you're in. If he can make it work, so can you, and away we go.
All right, so there's a few big lessons in this. First off, you're a great storyteller. So right off the bat, you're able to tell a really vivid story. And I could see myself kind of eavesdropping your conversation with John, which is, like you said, engaging the imagination. Now, obviously, you did it through the use of detail, which is really important. A lot of people don't get it. What we do for some of our clients is we build them sales funnels, and the part of that sales funnel is a sales letter telling their story. And a lot of times, I'll be asking, I'll be having them, fill out this survey, right? And it has specific questions like, what did your life look like before you started online? And, very specifically, I asked, like, give us, some specific situations we can work with. Well, maybe you went to the grocery store and your card got declined, or maybe you wanted to enroll your kid to this expensive private school and didn't have enough money to do it, and yada, yada, yada. And, it's funny, almost every single time I have to go back and ask these people to fill out the application again, only this time with details, because almost everybody kind of sums things up. And I noticed that's one of those really common mistakes when it comes to writing and producing content. People sum things up. Did you ever spot anything like that? And if you have, why do you think that happened?
I think it's just a matter of them needing more time in the business. It's like anytime you're introduced to anything, there's so much going on that you can't even appreciate the details. You just don't know so much. And so when people are just getting introduced to online marketing, guys like you and I who've been telling stories for a long time and writing emails, we see how kind of simple and formulaic and easy it is. But for somebody that's just walking into it, it's like, being handed, a Kalashnikov rifle and being told to take it apart and put it back together again the first time you're ever handed it. Obviously, that's going to be so intimidating and overwhelming. And so people can't even think of all the details, that would come to a customer in their business. And also, if they've been in the business for a long time, they, like you and I don't think email writing is hard. They don't think that there's a lot of details in their business. They think it's a lot simpler than it is, and a lot more boring than it is. So it just needs good questions. And so maybe it's just a matter of you asking better questions in the application to stimulate their imagination. Getting into a customer avatar is a really great exercise for people to do to help them understand who they're writing to. That's really important. And that's a good place to start them thinking in the customer's shoes, which at the end of the day is what the marketer has to do. They have to think from the customer's shoes so that they know who to speak to when they're writing to the customer, but also what to say to them, and make sure that they're catching their attention.
Well, you're absolutely right. Just like in any communication, I guess, I am responsible for 50% of it. So I'll definitely go ahead and rework the questions to try and elicit better details. Thank you so much for that. And as far as like us not noticing the details, that's absolutely true as well. Because when I first started hiring people in my business, I thought it was going to be an easy process. I just brought in a girl. She was 19 at the time. And I was like, man, this is so easy. I've built out all the systems. It's all working smoothly. You just got to run the show, and I, I kind of put her in the driver's seat. And I immediately realized that this is way more complicated than I thought. And, things I do take for granted and I do on almost autopilot without even thinking about them, for her, it takes like 2 hours sometimes. So I had to learn this the hard way. And you're absolutely correct. We do tend to kind of assume things and take things for granted, for sure. Now, another question I've had was, you seem to be able to produce all this content in a very short time span. I mean, just like anybody else, you have only 24 hours in the day. So how many hours a day do you actually write?
3 or 4, I would say. And, the most important thing to me is early in the morning, which is my time of day when I'm the most productive. And everybody's going to have their own time of day when they're most productive. And that's just a matter of making sure that you recognize it. So, use a time journal and go through your day and identify where you are most productive. And then once you've identified your most productive time, make sure that you're doing your most important activity at that time. So if you are a writer and you're most productive between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., then you can't be doing anything else between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. You need to be focused on that. And you need to be writing and spending time in your most important activity. And if you find that it's 10 o'clock at night, then you do 10 o'clock at night. I mean, you just do whatever's best. And so for me, it was blocking out the time early in the morning. I go down and I have a little bit of an outline that I work from. So I try not to work from a blank sheet. And I just go and I write, or I write like I talk, and I would just, explain things to the person who I'm expecting to read it. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line, is just, simplify, simplify, simplify. One of the best things I was ever told from my editor at Men's Health Magazine was to write at a grade 7 level. You might even write at a lower level these days, maybe grade 5 or grade 6. So no big words, very short sentences. You could use Hemingway app, which is a way to, make your writing a little bit simpler and clearer, because Hemingway wrote in very short words and very short sentences. And that's one of the things he's famous for. And so you just simplify your writing and you can crank it out, and then you can go and edit it later on. I mean, I got a lot of editing to do to my writing, but that's how you get a lot done.
Interesting. So, man, there's so many things you're saying that I really want to either jot down on a piece of paper, going to go back, but I realize we have limited time. So you mentioned something, though, that I believe will be extremely beneficial to our listeners. You said you write like you talk. And I've had a bunch of instances where people said they were uncomfortable with writing, but when they were talking to me, they were able to present their ideas in a very interesting and entertaining way. So I told them, why don't you just talk it out? And they just recorded themselves and then transcribed their recording, and bam, they had writing going on. So did you ever do anything like that?
I've never done that, but I know some people that use, drag and dictate or dictation apps, and they just do it. They just talk because they're much better speakers than they are writers, and it's much more natural to them. And for those people, you might even go directly into video blogging or videos instead of email writing at all. And we're seeing a lot more video these days, and it gets you very far very quickly because everybody can watch videos anywhere. It's so easy to download. The speeds are fast enough that you might be able to skip the entire email thing and just go straight to video and audio. So yeah, I mean, people who are frustrated at first should definitely go down that route and explore it, because you can really crank out a lot of content very quickly. Like on this call, in an hour, we would put together 25 pages worth of content going back and forth. And I mean, I don't know anyone who could write 25 pages worth of content. That's probably like 5,000 words in an hour.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know there's a lot of services out there that help you write a book that actually, because so many people are afraid of writing, they will allow you to talk the book out. And
I've done that actually. I've talked a book before.
Oh, no way. Tell us a little bit more about that experience.
It's very simple. It's really just pick, 10 chapters, then 3 sub-chapters, then 5 questions for each one. And once you've got that down, you've basically got your book, because then the person asks you the question and you talk for a little bit, and then they ask you the next question. And the next thing you know, in 8 hours, you have the transcript. Then it goes off to an editor. The editor cleans it up and brings it back. And so, you could have a 120-page little book done in a day just by doing it that method.
This is incredible. I mean, communicating with you and just looking at what you do, I get the impression that you can create what most people do in a year sometimes within like a week or even a month. And it's so weird to people like me who are used to think about writing as this complicated, time-consuming task, or content creation as this thing that really makes you want to, just stay in bed, not really go out and create anything. So I really thank you for sharing all these tips and nuggets with us on this call. Now, something that I really want to recommend to our listeners is to pick up a copy of The Perfect Day Formula, which is a book you've written on productivity and just owning the day and controlling your life rather than having your life and your day control you. So do you mind sharing a little bit with us what inspired you to write this book?
I mean, really the thing that I had done for the last 10 years on how to make my days better, more productive, have that work-life balance and have amazing life, where I'm able to travel the world and go on vacations and stuff like that, and still the business runs, but also just to be healthy as well. And so it's just to make sure that, you have that amazing work day, the structure in your work day so that you can be free. And so it's about building true freedom by having more structure in your life, which sounds like a paradox. And of course it is, but it's one that really works. So the more structure you have in your work day, the more freedom you will have in your free time and in your personal life. And that's what life is all about. And people can get a free copy of the book at freeperfectdaybook.com. Just pay shipping and handling, and I'll send that book to you wherever you live. Again, that's freeperfectdaybook.com.
Awesome, guys. You should totally get the book. You should read it and implement it, because some of the highest achievers in our industry have. Ryan Holiday, I think I've seen a testimonial from Russell Brunson. There's one from Mark Ford. So yeah, absolutely. Definitely get the book to get more done in less time and have a much better, much higher quality work and life balance. So Craig, thank you so much for doing this episode with us. I really appreciate it. And until next time we talk, have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kheifets, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
This is the podcastfactory.com.